I am going to make a statement. Shocking, I know. Five Nights at Freddy's is one of the greatest games to ever exist. As a matter of fact, I would put it in the top 5 games to ever be created. And the reason why that is because I believe that it's more than just a game. It's an experience to be lived through. That might sound a little crazy, but you're gonna have to hear me out, okay? I'm going to use the theme of familiarity to prove that Five Nights at Freddy's is an experience to be lived through. And the way I'm going to do that is by looking at the lore, the characters, and the gameplay. So let's get started. The very first section of this video is dedicated to the gameplay. And the first aspect that I want to draw attention to is the realism present in this game. Now, I know that might sound a little crazy talking about a video game in which ghost children possess animatronics to hunt purple people down. But hear me out, okay? Think about the various tools that we use throughout the series. The main 3 that come up are cameras, lights, and doors. Those generally progress the gameplay loop to get us through each night. These are 3 things that you'll generally find around any building, and I think that's the ticket to what Scott was envisioning here. Scott took these 3 tools that one could find in any general store and repurposed them to create a universally relatable gameplay loop. This gameplay loop consists of 3 steps: search your surroundings to locate threats, respond to immediate threats, and repeat. You search with the cameras and lights and respond with the doors and whatever other tools that may be given to you throughout the games. These same 3 tools are used and repurposed throughout the franchise, creating a sense of familiarity for the player. And you know what else is used throughout the franchise to create a sense of familiarity for the player? The characters. I mean, think about how many different versions of Freddy there are. There's something like 18 across the entire franchise, including FNaf AR, which is completely insane. What's so cool about that is how creatively they're reused throughout the series. First, in the first game, you just have your regular standard core 4. You have Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica. And then, in the second game, you repurpose them to get withered versions, shadow versions, toy versions. That kind of repurposing is used throughout the series to get so many different kinds of variations on these characters. And these variations create a sense of familiarity, again, for the player, so that they can feel more immersed in the world by knowing who the characters are. Even if they're new characters that are coming about, they're able to understand them in the context of older characters that have existed. And I think that's pretty amazing. Each of the characters also has their own kinds of strengths, which I really appreciate. For example, in the first 2 games, regular Freddy and Toy Freddy, they both look pretty realistic, I would say. But the 4th game tends to lean much more into that scariness factor. So when Nightmare Freddy is a lot more out of place at a regular pizzeria, people are able to take what they've learned before from the first 2 Freddys and repurpose that knowledge to understand how this 4th Freddy works. And lastly, I just wanted to take a look at my favorite icon, Funtime Freddy, because he tends to lean both into the realism and the scariness aspects of it. And I think the way he's able to do that is because he comes after the 1st and 4th games. Because he comes in the 5th game, he's able to lean on the realism that came with the 1st Freddy and the scariness that came with the 4th Freddy to create something that's entirely new and envisioned. He leans both into realism and spookiness at the same time. And I think that's really incredible. So I think this familiarity with the characters helps build a world for people to get involved in and get immersed in. Now, with all these characters coming along, that brings along the questions of a timeline, which is my segue into the lore. Easy segue, am I right? There are a lot of things you could talk about when it comes to the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's. You could talk about how insanely complicated it is. You could talk about how intricate it is, how long the timeline is. But my favorite part about the lore is how community-oriented it is. The community of lore finders has grown to be inseparable from the games themselves. I mean, just think about it. You have MatPat, John FNAF, Daco, all sorts of people on YouTube just inundating the platform with theories on this game. The lore is fun to discover. It's a way to get involved in the community and the games, and it leads back to familiarity one more time. If you're going through your social media and you're seeing all of these theories, these community-oriented theories on Five Nights at Freddy's of all these different people working together to understand exactly what the heck is going on in these stories, then it's going to become part of your world. And I think that's the final piece of this puzzle to put into place, is that with the gameplay and the characters both being reused, it helps you when you're in the games, it helps you understand and get immersed in the world of the games. But what do you do when you're outside of the games? And that's where the community-oriented lore comes in. People get so familiar with FNAF in their day-to-day lives because there are so many people trying to draw out its secrets all around them. Granted, the lore is a bit of a mess right now after the whole soft reboot, and apparently Ballora owns... I don't know anymore. But all I'm trying to say is that it's the idea of striving to understand the lore that really helps people get involved and invested in these games outside of just the gameplay and the characters themselves. I think that the familiarity of the lore, the characters, and the gameplay all come together to help create this incredible world of Five Nights at Freddy's. This world that's created for people to get involved in includes the community, the lore, the gameplay, the characters, everything. And that makes it something to be experienced. It's something to be experienced because there's always something immersing you in it. Whether it be other people, whether it be creators, or whether it be the games themselves. There's always something for you to look for, to find a way to get involved in Five Nights at Freddy's. And that's what makes me think it's an experience to be lived through, is that you don't have to just stop once you're not done playing the games. It can live rent-free in your head and in every other person's head to a point where you can all work together to experience it. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. Make sure to like and subscribe.